Happy Friday, everybody. I am here to share some mistakes that I made on my divorce journey that I'll share with you in hopes that it will help you avoid these things, or at least make you aware of them so you don't repeat them if you are repeating them. So first, I just had the best lunch at this place called Kava, and my friend had been telling me to go there for a long time. She's like, you need to go to Kava, and I finally went today, and I'm so glad I did because it was so good, and I ate that whole bowl. So that was really good, and I enjoyed it. My belly's full, and I'm happy, and I got a word, so it's all good. So if you are joining me, let me know where you are watching from. The first mistake I made on my divorce journey was having emotionally charged conversations. Now, when you are going through the divorce experience, I should probably take my glasses off. When you're going through the divorce experience, it's a very emotionally charged time, and you can get triggered by the simplest things, something somebody says, something that you see in the house. So it's pretty much just a very emotionally charged time. Something somebody says, something you might see, or something that reminds you of a better time or a better time period. And that can kind of trigger you. That can trigger your emotions. And also conversations with your ex if you are co-parenting, or I don't know, you for whatever reason you have to still be in communication. Those conversations can be very emotionally charged, and the emotion of it takes over the conversation, and you even forget what you're fighting about, right? Yeah, so you can just really forget what you were even, like, you forget what the argument is even about. And so the one thing I did not do was create energetic boundaries around myself and around my emotions to avoid emotionally charged conversations. I even had emotionally charged conversations with my mother, and it's just a very sensitive time. So give yourself time, space, and grace so that you can avoid emotionally charged conversations. And it's okay to say, I need a moment, or I don't really want to talk about that right now. One thing I used to say, this is kind of killing my vibe. So people would kind of back off then. Because, I don't know, it's like before you know, you just like blow up on somebody, and that's not really what we want, right? We don't want our emotions controlling us. We want to be in control of our emotions. The second mistake that I made with my divorce journey is not knowing what I wanted. And a lot of times when we experience things that we don't want, it kind of gives us clarity on what we do want. And so I just really didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know what I wanted because I had allowed somebody else and other people to make decisions for me. And it's not that they were making bad decisions, but it was more so like I gave up my power. I gave up my power to make my own decisions. And so at that point, because I was not really used to making decisions, I didn't know what I wanted. And the thought of making decisions by myself, it scared me. It scared the hell out of me. To know that I was in charge of my life, I was responsible for me, that was scary. And even while married or you're in a relationship, you're still responsible for you. But I was just in such a unhealthy, negative place where I gave up self-responsibility, and I made other people responsible for me. I allowed other people to make decisions for me without speaking up, without using my voice. And so I got to the place where I just didn't even really know what I wanted. I was so wrapped in motherhood. I was so wrapped in being a wife. I have really just lost myself. I lost my identity. I lost the twinkle in my eye. I was not myself. And so I'm usually like a pretty jovial, laugh, silly person. and she was not there. She was not there. And so as I kept experiencing what I did not want, that gave me clarity on what I do want. And that's the thing, like sometimes when we experience things that we don't want, we're like, why does this keep happening? But that kind of opens the door of clarity on, I just made that up, open the door of clarity. that kind of like, I don't know, like say my windshield is right here and it's like foggy or something. It's like when something happens, you kind of start wiping the window, start clearing, like, okay, I don't want to go in this direction, so let me go in this direction. Or I at least know I don't want to go that way, so I can either go here or here, So yeah, it gave me clarity and direction on what I did want. And if I didn't know what I wanted, I at least got closer to knowing what I want. She is back. She is back. She is refined, and she is better from the whole experience and helping others. All right, the last thing that I want to share is I tried to do it alone, and I suffered in silence. And everybody thought that I had the perfect life. I stayed home with my children. I had material possessions. And so everybody thought that I had the perfect little life. And we know that nobody lives a perfect life. I learned how to put a smile on and push through things. And people were, how are things going? Oh, I'm okay, I'm good. And that's not to say, like, I mean, yes, you can have boundaries around, you don't go around like telling all your business or blabbing or anything like that. But yeah, I just, even the people that I probably needed to open up to, I was like, I got it. And I needed community. I also needed to learn how to operate from my power. And I mentioned in the previous one, not knowing what I wanted, I had gave up my power. So I didn't know how to operate in my power. And that allowed me to suffer way more than I should have. Not should have. I don't like the word should, because it's like you should on yourself. I always say, like, don't should on yourself. But it just, I suffered longer than I needed to, than I wanted to. I suffered longer than I wanted to, because I was not operating in my power. And I tried to do it alone, and I needed community. Hey there, thank you. I was just sharing where I had come from, how I had just lost my shine, lost my sparkle. And that's why I do this, because I know what it's like to just be in a bad place, to be in a dark place, and give up your power and not operate in that. And it was so bad to where I heard someone say this earlier. I was fighting for drops of the ocean. Think of how big and vast and abundant the ocean is. And here we are, like, fighting over this little vial of water. So that just shows you like how far gone I was from myself. And that's why I'm just a big advocate for community. I'm a big advocate for building safe space with women, because I mentioned before, I've been doing infidelity coaching for the last 6 years, and I've added divorce to my repertoire last year. And the things that we share behind closed doors, we all go through the same stuff. We may have different experiences and different scenarios, and the details might look a little different, but our feelings are the same. So that's why I do what I do, because I've worked with some people. Okay, people are people, but I've worked with some people who you would never think they're going through what they're going through. And no matter what your socioeconomic status is, we all go through the same things. And we need community. We need each other. And so that's a big part of why I do what I do. because we think that we all so different, but we really not. We're not. It's not that much difference between us and what we experience and how we feel. The last thing I wanted to share was I wasn't recognizing the God in me, and it makes me think of that Mary song, "It's the God in me." But yeah, I was not seeing the God in me. I thought that other people, circumstances, and situations determined my destiny or had power over me. I had this narrative for a while, like, oh gosh, I'm a single, divorced mom. The last thing I wanted to be was a single mom, right? Because my mom I grew up with I was raised by a single mom. And my mom did meet someone when I think I was like 8. He wasn't really much of a father. And now that I'm looking back as an adult, I see why, but I'm not going to go into that. But the last thing I wanted to be was a single mom, because I seen what my mother went through. So I was like, I'm going to make sure that I'm not going to be a single mom. My kids have the same father and blah, blah, blah. Like, I wanted to make sure I look good on paper, right? But you don't really know people's stories. And because I feel like I was judging my mom, I didn't want to be judged how I was judging my mom. But now as an adult, I see my mom has a story. There's a story behind why we do what we do, why we make inner vows. And here I am, a single mom of 5. But that's okay, right? I'm okay with that. But I was not, I allowed my story and what happened to me to define me. And until I started realizing that does not define me. That does not define me. Like, your story does not define you unless you allow it to, unless you give it permission to. Other people can't define you unless you give them permission to do that. And that's when I realized that, that's when a lot of my suffering ended, and I started using my power. And I am power is one of my foundational affirmations that I use, because yes, like, we go through things or whatever, and yes, we may be a victim in certain situations, but being a victim does not negate you from the personal responsibility of recovering from whatever experience you had or whatever occurred. So you don't have to remain a victim. And I think I wore that victim medal with a badge of honor. This happened to me, and I was so self-righteous. But it was like, okay, yeah, I was right, but I was miserable. I was right, but I was miserable. So yeah, once I learned how to operate in my power, once I learned how to choose to rise above what happened to me, not allow it to define me, that's when I started seeing and operating in my power and making empowered choices. And I'm teaching that to my children as well. So there's definitely, I see the benefit of that. Also, changing my perspective. I always get perspective and perception different. Does anybody know the difference between perspective and perception? They're kind of similar, but I had this discussion with someone else. But yeah, drop it in the comments if you know the difference. But anyway, just kind of changing how I've seen things, changing the story as well. There's a quote, I can't remember the person. I think she might be a poet, but the quote says, she remembered who she was and the game changed. And it's like, life is a game, and we're playing all these different games. And I think I made a reel about it yesterday or the other day. But once you remember who you are, once you remember whose you are, then the game changes, because you already see yourself as a winner. You see yourself as a champion, and there's nothing that you can experience or nothing that can lay you out. I'm not saying that things don't happen, you won't hurt, and you won't have emotions and experiences in life, but they won't lay you out. I used to allow things to just lay me out. I was just powerless on the floor, and yeah, that's not a good feeling. It's not a good feeling. I was actually coaching these clients not yesterday, the day before, and they had caught a flight somewhere. I was just talking to them about recognizing small wins, and they caught a flight to San Antonio, and they lived in Wisconsin, and so their flight was canceled and they had to drive back to Wisconsin. Well, they didn't have to, but they chose to drive back, and they still made it home before their flight was rescheduled. So that's kind of crazy, right? But they were just saying how they decided to make it a trip and not make the most of it, but enjoy the journey. And so I was like, do you not see how that's a big win? Because you could be sitting there, I was about to say something bad. Griping. Let me say griping. You could be sitting there griping and complaining about your situation. Oh, they canceled the flights. Or you can choose to do something about it. You can also complain that, oh, I gotta drive 2 days home. But they said they really enjoyed it. And I was like, well, isn't that a story for the books? And look at how your perspective changed. Love that. We have to start recognizing our small wins. When we do that, we get momentum as we learn to like stack those wins. It's kind of like your train's going this way in the direction you don't want to go, or it's going this way. And as you recognize your small wins, you keep stacking engines on this end of the train. This was helpful. If you enjoyed this, please type yes below. Kind of got off topic a little bit, but it's all good. My story doesn't define me. I used to be so ashamed of my story, but the story that I'm ashamed of, some other woman is going through the same thing. Thank you for allowing me to share. Remember, pressure creates diamonds, and your next chapter is already here. You just have to decide it is. And I'm Jewel, reminding you of the gem you are. Bye, everybody.